Clarity on Fire, a podcast for people who know what they don't want out of their life and career, but aren't sure what they'd rather be doing.
In a world where it's easy to exist, but hard to feel alive, we, Kristen
and Rachel,
2 certified life and career coaches, are here to help you cut through the information overload, get unstuck, and focus not just on how you can have a career you're passionate about, but how to create a whole life that feels fulfilling.
So join us here, where we serve up inspiration and down-to-earth wisdom in a way that only 2 best friends can.
We want you to experience the relief of knowing that, yes, you're allowed to want more out of your life and career.
And no, you don't have to wander through the dark anymore. Our job is to light the fire that shows you the way. Let's go.
Hi.
Hey.
What a week. I don't love that we're recording this at 7 p.m. on a Friday night, by the way.
Well, and you guys are hearing this a week after we're recording. So just rewind to where you were last Friday night and think about how you were feeling then. Because I'll tell you how I'm feeling. Emotionally spent is how I'm feeling.
I'm feeling very wrung out.
Yes. What a week.
I'm tired.
I'm hoping when you're listening to this, we're all a little bit more rested, but we'll see.
Well, it could be worse. It could be a lot worse. Let's not complain about where we're at right now. It could be a lot worse. So this is a new normal person interview.
Yes. This is a normal person who is a client, kind of turned friend over the years.
Happens a lot.
It does happen a lot. So
actually, Bekah went to Moulin Rouge with us in August.
We went to dinner and a show.
Last year. Not this August.
Definitely not this August.
My birthday, the birthday before last.
Yeah, we went up to New York where Bekah lives. And yeah, we all went out to dinner and to Moulin Rouge together.
On Broadway. It was excellent.
Yeah, we had a really, really good dinner too.
We did.
So we've had many bonding experiences with Bekah, even in real life before COVID.
I know, it's like, whoa, a Broadway show. Wow.
Remember that? Wow.
You want me to read her bio?
Yes.
Okay. I love that she wrote this. Okay. I'm like, Bekah, I know you wrote this, but I endorse everything that you're saying. Bekah is one of our favorite clients. She's been working with Kristen since 2014. What we love about her evolution and wanted to share in today's interview is her commitment to continuous experimentation with all types of healing modalities in an effort to dig deep and really identify those pieces holding her back. She's always looking for ways to tap into her inner goddess, and she's committed to keeping it real, authentic, and fully alive. She now resides in the New York City metro area and is working in what was her dream job, doing enterprise software sales for a Fortune 100 organization. That's like a very specific dream job. I didn't know that was...
I would say probably that dream job developed over time.
Well, a true side hustler. She has pursued multiple career paths, a stint on Capitol Hill, jobs in HR consulting and technology recruiting, and now software sales. Okay, so that makes sense. It's not like anyone like at 6 years old is like, I want to be, sales. Yeah, and I had to go back and look at it like, what is it? Enterprise software sales for a Fortune 100 organization. Can you imagine? I'd actually like to meet the kid who says that that's like their dream job.
What a precocious little child that would be.
What was yours? You were like, you wanted to be...
Oh, yeah. No, I wanted to be a veterinarian during the work week. On the weekends, I wanted to be an artist. And on my days off, I wanted to be a construction worker.
First of all, the least believable thing about that is the work ethic that you were demonstrating. Because you would never work that much.
I like how on my days off, I do the hardest work. What?
Being a vet is a hard job.
That's true. That is true. But the most physically demanding.
I mean, yeah, I guess.
And on the weekends was my playtime, but I was still being a professional artist. And my mom asked me, when are you going to have a family and be married and stuff? And I was like, ew, no.
Oh, you really wanted to be an independent woman.
I did.
Oh, all I ever said was I wanted to be a lawyer or a journalist, which I contend I would have been great at either of those things.
Mm-hmm. Particularly a lawyer, I think.
Yeah, but everyone thinks you're just debating in a courtroom all day long. I worked at a law office. You rarely do that. The real lawyers are like, no, we just read a lot and write a lot.
You're also good at those things.
Anyway, so, okay, well, I hope you enjoy this conversation with Bekah. I like that one of her side hustles is kind of helping, quote unquote, diagnose what people need in their healing in order to like kind of get to the root of their issue. She's tried everything.
Yeah, she's dabbled in all these different modalities. Some of the modalities she's going to talk about in this episode. So yeah, she just kind of knows what is going to work well for people. So
that's cool.
I like that she has that ability, and I sometimes
like a healing concierge.
I ask her exactly. That's what I call her. I call her the healing concierge. I don't even think I told you that, but yeah, sometimes I'll be like, Bekah, tell me about this human design thing. We'll share modalities. So that's fun. So yeah, please enjoy, and we'll be back at the end. Hey, Bekah.
Hey, lady.
I'm so excited to have you on here because I've known you forever and I want everyone else to know you. So when I was thinking about
I want to know everyone else.
I know you do. You want to know all the people. Yeah. So when I was thinking about who I wanted to bring on the podcast for my next interview, I knew I wanted it to be you. Like that I was clear on. What I was struggling with is narrowing down what we were going to talk about. Because after working together and being friends for, what has it been? 5 years now? I don't know, maybe longer?
I think it might be 6. That's 6 now. Yeah.
Mind-boggling. So yeah, there was a lot we could get into.
Yes. Story of my life, right? I was just thinking about, I think when I first reached out to you, I just got out of college and was sort of doing the first job thing. But I think I was explaining my background to you and I was like, this is what I majored in. But just to be clear, I only picked a major because I had to pick a major. Like there were 10 other majors that I wanted to study.
You are a side hustler through and through.
Yes. Yeah. It always felt so limiting. I was like, there's just so much good stuff out there. How do you stick with one track?
Well, and honestly, that
was how I found you guys.
I love that. And it actually leads right into what I think we've sort of landed on that we want to get into today. I think we're going to end up going many different directions, but your desire for like your interest in all the things, right? Like your just curiosity and fascination and like love of trying new things and variety has led you to all these different really fascinating, I don't know, we'll call them healing or wellness or spiritual modalities. I feel like you're kind of a connoisseur of this whole range of wellness practices. So I know we're going to get into some of those. Like you and I are always sharing our latest with each other anyway, which I love. But I actually want to go back before we get into some of those experiences that you've tried. If we're talking about healing practices, healing modalities, I think it makes sense for us to go back and say, what were you or are you still trying to heal in the first place that had you seeking out all these different tools?
Yeah. Let's jump right in. So like a lot of things, I think I started, and let's talk like kind of high school era / college and then kind of post-college, right? Started at a very surface level approach. And I was very like kind of logical about it. I was like, okay, all right, I need help. Like, I'm not happy. I can see that. Let's start with therapy, right? Therapy, that's pretty widely accepted. Let's start there. And in conjunction with that, let me get some help because a lot of the things that are coming up for me are like this, anxiety around, oh my gosh, I'm out of school. I'm back home. I have to get out of my parents' house like immediately. Can't be here one more day. Have to find a job. Have to get a purpose, right? I'm no longer a student. So who am I? What am I doing? And that's, I was kind of doing some research and it was like the summer after I got out of school. I remember just in between Netflix binges, right? Googling like career help and stumbled across the classic quiz, right? I was like, this is cool. Okay. All right. I like this. This speaks to me. I'm a side hustler. That makes sense, right? They've got a nice website. Let me pop them a note and the rest is history, right? You and I got connected and started working and on and off, right? For like the past 6 years because I have jumped around job-wise a lot. And that's okay. I'm okay with that now. But, I had a lot of insecurity. I think my probably, first words would have been, I don't know what I'm good at. I don't know what to do. I don't think I'm good at anything. I don't have experience, right? You come from the mentality of like lack. Like, here are all the things I don't have and I need them. Like, I need money. I need income. I need independence. I need credibility. I need a professional network. I need, to feel better about myself. And I sort of went at it like, well, once I just figure this part of my life out, all of the other things will fall into place. Like, this career piece is the essential missing link between me feeling good about myself and what I'm doing. And, just it's going to be what I do and spend the majority of my time doing, right? It's such a big part of life. So started there, right? That's, branched off from therapy into coaching, stuck with that for a bit. But I think for me, there was just so much, like, there was some trauma. There was like, definitely, it was also emotional for me. And when it was so wrapped up, and I was, now looking back, I think I was trying so hard to be so logical about, why do I feel this way? Well, that doesn't make sense, right? But like, a lot of things just, they don't have to make logical sense. You can just feel the way you feel. And I just had such a deep, like, worthiness wound, right? And I had never really faced it. I sort of danced around it and I ignored it and I ran away from it. But once I started to get to some of my lower points, I had no choice but to really look it in the face and be like, I do not like myself. Not one bit. And here's all the ways that's showing up, right? I'm, messing up at work. I'm messing up with my relationships. I'm letting myself down. This seems like a pattern, and just then sort of spiraling, right? And just like kind of going down and wallowing and getting stuck in a really, if you talk about those energy levels, right? Like a really level 2, like just hanging out, level 2.
Frustrated and upset and overwhelmed and
frustrated.
Yep.
And not even seeing the possibility of like what things could look like if things were different, not believing it was possible, right? And a lot of that like limiting belief work. And I think I did most of your courses. I did at least 2 of them, like the passion profile course, and then probably one more that was sort of like the first 2 courses that you guys would have come out with. It was helpful to like do a little bit deeper dive and just a structured approach to like, okay, these are the things that align with me naturally. Like I, love collaboration. I love brainstorming. I love XYZ kind of activities, but I was finding out, I was like, well, there's no, I don't need to be a subject matter expert in any one area. And I don't necessarily care what it is I'm doing or selling. I just want to work with high quality people. And I just want to be, rewarded in a way that, my incentives are aligned with my hard work, right? Like, and now I'm in sales. So that makes perfect sense. Like, that's more you close, more you make. But a lot of it was, sort of stripping away, like, okay, well, here's what I want it to look like. Here's the work-life balance. Here's the autonomy piece. Here's the, mentorship piece. Here are all the things that like are non-negotiables for me. And through that lens, I could start to sort of see myself a little bit more fairly. Like, I think I was pretty harsh and judgmental of myself and like, candidly got fired from quite a few jobs. And you were right there with me saying, it's okay. That wasn't the thing for you anyway. They just made the decision for you rather than you getting out. Right. But that was a low point. And a lot of that work that we did has excavated, right, those deeper beliefs, like I said, the worthiness wound. And certainly like, for me, like even going as far back as like when I was a baby, like a primal wound, you can call it like a primal mother wound, which for me in my story is actually a little bit about my mother and my like, birth story and my family. And, I was adopted and there's like complex, family dynamics going on there. So I just never put the pieces together, until kind of in the past year, I started to connect the dots. And gosh, I feel like what I'm trying to heal now is I'm just trying to have compassion for myself and like restore that trust in myself and hold myself in high regard, because it was so easy to beat myself up, right? Yeah. I thought that the way to get things done was like, just, tell yourself how far behind you are. You need to work harder. You need to strive more. You need to claw your way to the top. You're not good enough. So 1 job, 2 job, 3 job, right? Keep going, keep working. And it's a pretty like exhausting way to be. It's actually funny because you and I were talking about human design the other week, and I'm a generator type. So generators have that like innate motor, they call it, where you have a self-sustaining energy source. You can basically just be Energizer Bunny and keep going and going and going.
That is so
and I
true.
did that. But you know what? That's the type like of the human design types. That's the type most prone for burnout because they have that capacity for pushing past their own like natural boundaries.
Yep, makes sense.
And sure enough, burn, crash, like repeat. I'm still trying to get out of that cycle. I tend to create these like, really chaotic schedules for myself where I'm so jam-packed with activities that I don't even have, a moment to like reflect and pause. So it's been kind of an interesting exercise with COVID. It's sort of been a forced pause for a lot of people, but it's actually been kind of healthy for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what I think is really interesting about what you're sharing here is when I asked you, what were you trying to heal? And it clearly has changed. So at first, what you would have said 5 or 6 years ago was, I'm just trying to learn what my strengths are. I'm just trying to figure out what I want to do for a career. I'm trying to put these pieces of my life in place. It was a little bit more external, right? It was like, I'm trying to figure out my place in the world and fit my life into what I think makes sense. And then I'll feel better. And the next phase of it was, I think I need to focus on feeling better about myself first. I think that that's not a result of the external stuff. That's actually the thing I need to heal first and foremost. And now, after doing a lot of healing work, and again, we're going to get into some of those things. You're already throwing out like coaching and therapy and human design, and there's like even more where that came from. I know, but after really committing to that self-healing work, which is a lifelong journey, right? This is not a thing that you ever really complete, but you are at a new stage of what you're healing now. And it's more about this compassion with yourself. It's more about recognizing, hey, I'm still going to have these old patterns, but how can I be a little gentler with myself when they come up? So what you've been trying to heal has, in some ways, felt like it's gotten deeper to the root of the thing. And you've uncovered these new layers the further down this path you go.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. What was a big aha moment for me was I was trying to go about it from such a logical, like, I don't know if that's left brain or right brain. I can't recall. But, the Myers-Briggs type where you're, I don't remember. The one that's logical is the one that I've been trying to use the most, but my natural strength is actually my other creative, more emotional side. This was actually really interesting. I was taking my Myers-Briggs and I had always tested and I always responded to the answers in a way that I was an ENTP. Is that the last perceiving? With the T, the third letter was the one where I eventually figured out, I was getting a massage. I was talking about the process. It was a very we're just having conversation. And all of a sudden, I think he was like, what if you're not a T? What if you're really an F? And I was like, holy shit, I think I am an F. And then, of course, I'm sure I started crying. That was
just to prove the point.
I'm an F. And I've been trying to be a T my whole life. I'm trying so hard to fit into society, be this logical, linear, strategic, bullshit, whatever. No, I'm such a feeler. I'm such it all comes from me. I'm such, again, back to human design, and I just got into human design, but I'm, my emotional center is my source of authority, right? That literally means that my emotions drive everything for me. That's my inner voice, guttural response is always, emotional, and that's fine. It doesn't make you a weak person. It doesn't necessarily lend well to business in some aspects, but you can work around that. I just think that the way that we're, obviously I was very much responding to society and pressures, and what I was observing was the people who are rewarded are very logical, very linear, very blah, blah, blah. But no, I was the crier. I was the outward with my emotions to the point where I really couldn't even control them. And it was just such a good moment where I was okay, I'm not that. Been trying to fit, a square peg into a round hole for my whole life. That doesn't work for me. And I'm going to stop trying now. It was so cool to have that acknowledgement. And it's just some aspects of that where you just have these beliefs about yourself and who you are. And then you something points you to look at it in a different light, and you're like, oh, okay, all right. And that's who I am, and I'm okay with that. Like, cool, embrace it and move forward.
Yeah.
And that just really opened up, because I would have never told you that I wanted to work on myself or how I felt about myself. That was way too soft. Like, no, I don't have time for that bullshit. I have to get a job. And I got to figure out how to make 6 figures. I got goals.
Yeah.
I can't talk about feelings.
Yeah. Okay. So
we're talking about feelings.
This is, I always made you talk about feelings, whether you wanted to or not. But this is a really interesting place to go, because I'm imagining for people who are listening to this now, who know that they're not happy with where their life is, or they're just not happy with themselves, probably at the core of it. There's probably some things that they have been doing that are not working. And that was one of the things that you were doing that was not working. You were trying to logic your way into feeling worthy. And those things don't go together, right? It's never going to work out that way. So trying to fit the logical pieces of your life in place, hoping that on the other side of that, you would feel enough and you would feel worthy and you would feel like, now I can like myself. That didn't work. I'm curious, what else did you discover over the past, 5-6 years or so has not been helpful to you gaining that sense of liking yourself and feeling enough and feeling like, okay, I got this. It's going to be okay. Like, where did you go off the path? And then of course we're going to come back to, okay, what did work? But first, I think people are going to be like, ooh, I'm doing some things that are not helpful.
Sure. And we're all a little bit guilty, right? We all have those late night Amazon or, whatever, pick your poison shopping sprees online. And it's like that hit, right? You just like put it in your shopping cart and you just like check out and you're like, yes, all right, hit a dopamine, got it. For me, I'm like that with food as well. So I just treat myself to sushi whenever I'm feeling particularly low.
Mm-hmm.
You were saying, so your question was, what did you do that was not basically in alignment with supporting you long term? There's a lot of self-sabotaging.
Yeah, that you maybe kind of convinced yourself like, oh, well, this is what I need, right? I need some comfort sushi food tonight, or I need to get a better job, or, like the things that you thought were leading you where you wanted to go, but that were maybe a little bit mirages. Because I think I want to contrast those with what actually really did work.
I was so desperate for a solution that I was willing to pretty much put myself into probably $40K worth of debt at the end of the day. Not all at once, but right over time, right? I wasn't really like, I hadn't really made it yet. So I was sort of like, okay, I just need to make it. I just need to get a job that pays enough that I can support this, because I need a coach and I need, a nutritionist, and I need a personal trainer, and I need like all of these people to support me, to help me be the best version of myself, because I can't do it for myself. I don't have the willpower. I don't have the knowledge. So part of that was continuing. I mean, it's all good, right? It's good to invest in yourself, but I was coming at it from the belief that I could never do these things for myself and I had to pay somebody else to figure it out. And honestly, I figured out a ton. I'm so glad that I invested, but I could have done it on my own. I say that, but honestly, my preference was always to get some help, right? Like I naturally love to collaborate. I love working one-on-one or working in a group setting. I get energy off of other people. I just feel like I process externally and I process better. And I sort of feel like I collapsed the timeline a lot of things for me by doing that. But like, don't get me wrong. I put myself in a ton of debt. I put myself in very bad financial situation. I put myself in a place where I was so underwater that then I had to shift away from like a career coaching to like just trying to get myself out of the financial mess. And trying to walk myself back and say, I have such an emotional attachment to this like service or this coach or this like program that I really, really want to do, that maybe sometimes I'll just impulsively buy ahead of time and max out the credit card. But at the end of the day, still got to pay the bills, still got to figure out a way to like, reconcile everything. I just kept, like, I could not stop myself. The shopping too. I mean, the shopping was like, not that I just have to have new clothes, but I have to have the best clothes. I have to go to Trunk Club and have everything, custom, whatever, because I wanted to feel good and I wanted to feel confident and I want to feel sexy. I wanted to feel mature. I wanted to be taken as a professional. I wanted to look my best. I mean, I wanted all of the things. I'm like, all or nothing. I'm going to either do this right or I'm not going to even bother. Just wear sweatpants. So I just took this whole approach of like, I am not enough, but I must work very, very hard and spend a lot of money, because money for me was equating with like worth and status, as well as like the coaching was like validating. Like if I'm doing it by myself, it's not real work, or I can't do it and I just will give up because I didn't trust myself to follow through. But if I have a coach, then I have an accountability, and I at least can have somebody saying, you didn't do the things, like you didn't apply to the job as you said you were going to. What's going on? And I'm sure you and I had many of those conversations where you were just like, well, we're kind of stuck. I gave you an action plan and you still haven't done it. So it's not a mistake, but it was definitely, now that I look back on it, it's, you know, obviously hindsight, right? You're just like, well, that's obvious and clear that, you know, I was so lacking in trust of myself and my own knowledge and own resilience. Like I had I knew I struggled. Like I struggled with depression, and I struggled with my image and my, you know, appearance, and just like all of the things, right? It just, you can tile it all up with feeling like shit all the time. Hated everything about me. I felt like the only way to get like a little bit of relief from that feeling of not liking myself was to invest in myself, which is a quote good idea, right? Investing in yourself is always good. But I was doing it I was doing it out of a place of lack, not believing that I had anything in me inherently that I could take care of myself, right?
Yes,
I just gave that away. I was like, I can't take care of myself, but somebody else can, and I can pay them to do it. And I, in fact, don't even care if I'll go into debt, because they can handle it. They can help me. They're my white knight. You're my white knight, Kristen.
Well, and that's exactly what I was thinking it's really fascinating to hear you kind of talk through this, since I've been there the whole time, but right, to recap it like this, what was the thing that was not helpful was the intention, not the actual things that you were doing. Some of those things could be acts of self-care, or could and did genuinely help you kind of progress along that journey. But the intention going into them was, instead of me hiring a coach or buying this new wardrobe or going on this yoga retreat or whatever, instead the intention being, I love myself and want to, you know, kind of grow. It was, I don't know how to fix myself, so these things need to fix me, right? It was putting your power on external sources, which sometimes inadvertently ended up helping you, right? But when the intention is from lack, you tend to overdo it. That's just normal, right? You tend to think, I don't trust myself to control any of these parts of my life, so I need to outsource all of them. And I can talk myself into believing that an investment in myself is a good thing. But when I hit a certain point, now I'm actually self-sabotaging, because at the end of the day, it's all coming back to my lack of self-trust. And so that was the thing that was unhelpful, was doing really some of the right things with the, I won't say wrong intention, but just like a self-sabotaging intention.
So misguided. Yeah, you're right. Because I still do some of those things today. Like, it's not to say that now I've got it all figured out and I'm just the ultimate authority and never ask for help. Quite the opposite. I still invest, but I'm really coming at it from a place of sitting still. Like before, I would say that my energy has really changed too. I was always very frantic. My nickname at home, I mean, my parents would call me the Tasmanian devil, because I would I would whirl into the house and I'd be like, you know, a hot mess, and like just always in a rush, right? I'm like 30 minutes late to wherever my next thing is, right? I've got like 5 seconds to like, you know, do X, Y, Z. I never had any time for anyone. Like I would go home, I would visit, but I would just be in and out. I wouldn't even sit for a second and like sit and visit with my family, right? I would just be in and out, so impatient, so on the go, so jam-packed, frantic energy, just go, go, go. Because that, again, I was equating that busyness to like the busyness, the activity was equated to me to like some sort of worth. I was like, cool, I'm super busy, therefore I'm super important, therefore I should feel better about myself, right? And all of these ways, we're trying to figure out a way, like, how do I feel good about myself? It's like, I hate myself. Like, I hate how I look. I'm weak. You know, I can't do this. I suck at this. I got fired from this job. I'm, whatever, long laundry list of criticisms, right? My gremlin was very loud. And yeah, the energy was super frantic. It was just like a panic desperation thing, right? I was probably sending like SOS signal to the universe, like help, save me. I can't, like I'm flailing around here. And now it's like, we're much calmer. We're much more like, let it sit, right? If somebody, if I have like an intro call or something, I'm like, let me sleep on it. Let me reflect on it. Let me really sit with it. And rather than, you dangling this carrot in front of me to sign up today and save, $300, I'm going to say, thank you, but I'm going to wait. Like it's in alignment for me to wait, pause, reflect, sit with it. And honestly, I always, I'm very, in the past, I was very impulsive and I would have just been like, yep, this is right in front of me. Got to take the opportunity, let's go for it, pay for it later. Now it's like, I think about it. I'm like, how would I feel if I worked with this person? Or how would I feel if I did this program? What kind of benefit could it bring? Is this what I want to focus on right now? Because as you might be able to tell, I have a lot of different interests. You can't have them all at the same time. If I had to prioritize, would this make the cut? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And having to say, not right now. No thanks. Right. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it felt really good to say no to more and more things. Like the power of no is just so amazing. And you do start to put like marbles back into the trust jar for yourself. Once you start saying no or saying not yet, or now is not a good time for me. Right. And I only started doing that like within the past year and a half. I only started like, actually being like, no, thank you. That's not for me right now. Or I'm not in a good place.
Yeah.
And it was a little hard. It was a little hard for a couple of different reasons too. I had such a fear of disappointing people, right? Like I'm such a people pleaser. I suffer from that to this day. A total fear of like the disappointment or the tone in someone's voice, right? Like I'm very sensitive to that energy. Mm-hmm. And it's like really hard for me to like sit in that uncomfortable, awkward ending when you've just told someone no or like not happening. So that's been a growth area for me. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I guess now the energy is so much more of like, calm, patience, like everything will come in time. And it's more like there's so much possibility out there rather than like a scarcity mindset like I was before, where it was like so, and desperate, right? Desperate is like the word I would use. I was just, starved for that like hit of dopamine, that like hit of attention, that like little thing that I could pay someone to do to help me, give me, out of my shitty 8 hours work day where I hated my job and felt like I was terrible at it. And I wasn't happy. At least I had a 30-minute or hour-long coaching call at the evening to look forward to, right? It was like the Band-Aid on the deeper, like, not being a fit, not being in a good environment. And now I've hopefully rejiggered things so that I don't have that depleted level anymore. Like I'm in a good place where I need to be. And then everything, I'm not desperate for that one hit wonder or that like quick fix anymore. And I'm a little bit more calm.
You've done such a good job of describing what it feels like when what you're doing is not working. The symptoms, at least for you, right? But I think a lot of people are going to relate to these symptoms. The symptoms were being constantly busy, feeling constantly overwhelmed, overspending, saying yes to too many things, feeling like you're always kind of putting on like an imposter syndrome, right? Feeling like you're trying so hard to look a certain way or come across a certain way or be perceived in a certain way, but on the inside, you just feel completely unworthy or completely like a sham. So that's what it felt like when you were scrambling to do all these things that were not getting to the heart of what really needed the attention and the healing. And on the other side, when you are recognizing what truly needs to be healed and taking the time to give yourself more of that, it feels a little slower pace. It feels a little bit more like, let me pause. Let me check in with myself. You know what? Actually, no. Instead of the impulsive yes, right? The frantic kind of, I need that to fix whatever is wrong with me. Now it's like, I don't know that anything's wrong with me. I just want to make sure I'm doing things that feel aligned. There's a very different feel to the experience of doing things that are not serving your higher purpose or your higher need. And then when you are focused on more of those things, and I want to hear what has helped you. What are some of the things that really did make a difference? Like, you've shared what was not working, right? But what are some things that have helped you be able to get to the point where now you can say no to things? You can take that pause. You don't feel all the time like you're frantically trying to be perceived in a certain way. You can be more genuine to who you are. What's gotten you here?
Well, it's funny because I know you and I had a coaching call a few weeks ago when I was totally back in like frantic world. Just, I was able to at least articulate like the situation that had triggered me. And we talked through like, here are the triggers. It totally brought me back to feeling like worthless, right? I basically had a superior at work tell me, I can't believe you're making what you're making. You're completely overpaid. This is, basically it's ridiculous. This person didn't know me at all and didn't know my background, and kind of hit a sensitive point because I am on the younger side of the team. So I felt like called out for my age, and I felt called out for being, not good enough. And I felt called out. I just felt exposed. Right.
Yeah.
And I went into like productive, like kind of cover my ass mode, rather than in the past, I would just like wallowed in that and just really like internalized it and like thought about it, but like not acted on it, and probably just like withdrawn from the world, right? I would have just gone inside into my little shell where it's not, that comfortable, but it's safe. And this time I actually was like, no, that's not right. I know that's not right. I need to stand up for myself. And I did, but it wasn't like the anxiety. I mean, I had panic attack. I had like elevated heart rate. I could tell I, elicited like a strong fear response that, that indicates to me like, and I think you were the one that you're like, if it's, historic, it's, what was the saying? If it's,
if your reaction is hysterical, it's historical. Just meaning if you're having a reaction that's really big compared to the thing that triggered it, there's a history there. There's something that it's bringing up that's old. And so, you got triggered back into how you had been feeling years ago, the unworthiness, the not enoughness, the imposter syndrome. But what I think is interesting is you can tell that you've grown when how you used to feel all of the time is now a temporary experience that feels so jarring because that's not your norm anymore. So I think that's, this is why I love these quote unquote normal people interviews, right? Because it's like, hey, I still get triggered there, right? I don't have it all figured out, but this is not my normal reality anymore. That's not your day-to-day experience.
No.
That was a really strange thing. Whereas 4, 5, 6 years ago, that would have just been an everyday experience.
Daily. I used to daily live in fear of being fired or being called out or for doing a bad job, or just always feeling like so inadequate as I would measure myself, for a couple of reasons. I wasn't doing a good job, right? I wasn't in the right kind of job. I didn't have the right team, or I didn't, it just, different things weren't a fit for me. That didn't make me a bad worker. But at the time, previous, like younger me was like, logically, you were a terrible worker if you continue to be fired. There's not really any arguing that logic, but understanding the process I've been through to kind of uncover what is a fit. And now I'm doing okay, right? Wouldn't say I'm doing great all of the time, but I'm, modest success. So, hey, like I'm going to keep doing the best I can and not, like internalize it anymore, or let someone's comment like tell me how much I should be making. Like, excuse me, you do not know me. You do not know how long I've been waiting to make money. So you can take your comments and walk it back.
Right. Yeah. But I was you've gotten into
triggered.
Self-defensive mode versus self-attacking mode in triggering circumstances like that, which is definitely proof of growth. Okay. So you've mentioned so many cool things already, and I know you have more. So you've mentioned you've tried therapy, right? You've tried coaching.
Yep.
You've mentioned human design, which if people don't know what that is, definitely check out human design. I'm still new to this. I'm still discovering it myself, and it's fascinating from what I know already. What are some of the other things that have really served you to be able to have such a different response when you get triggered now than you used to have?
So the one that comes to mind is so simple, but you introduced me to Heidi and she taught me. So Heidi did like, EFT tapping, tapping on different points in the body. And I do tapping still today with my current therapist, which is really like, it's interesting that it works. It sort of re-channels your neural pathways or something. I don't really understand. Yeah, it calms you down. So I did that the other day and I went from like this frantic, like I've just chugged a cup of coffee and I'm like so like anxious to like literally started yawning. And my therapist was like, great. And I'm like, what's so good about yawning? I'm just tired. And she's like, no, that's a sign that you've flipped back into your parasympathetic, right? You're chill, like you've flipped into the other side of your brain or your, whatever the scientific word is for it. I had just calmed myself down and I didn't even notice it was happening. And it was like so cool. I was like, oh yeah, all right, cool. Because I could not chill out. I could not. I was just so frantic. So the tapping is cool, but Heidi taught me to do vocalization. So Heidi did like a reading. She read my astrology. Such a great lady. Everybody should go read her newsletter.
I know. Heidi is our energy healer, but she's really kind of like a jack of all, maybe like a Jill of all trades in the wellness world. Yeah, she's one of our favorites, but man, she's taught us some really cool stuff. So yeah, tell them about vocalizations in case people don't know what that means.
So vocalizations was basically, she just could sense, she did the reading, right? And the energy reading, you can read from virtually or whatever. You don't need to be physically present, but she could just tell like so much anger. Like there was so much like rage and anger pent up inside and so much frustration. Like frustration was like number one. And she knew that I needed to get it out. And she just made the recommendation. She's like, okay, you need a couple of things. Like you need to take Epsom salt baths. Like you need to actually just calm and like soothe yourself. So that will help. But the other piece I want you to do is these vocalizations. And she's like, yell into your pillow, yell out loud, like that you need to get the sound out. Like you need to literally hear your vocal cords like hum. And so I know anybody that's done yoga and done like a big om, and it comes from like a very like deep, like, guttural sound. Like I would just do a lot of ohms, like really loudly. And anytime anyone does an om, I'm strive to be the loudest one in the room because it's really therapeutic. I was like, I was so skeptical at first. And in fact, I was super resistant. I was like, I'm not going to do that. Like, that's dumb. But guess what? It feels really good. It feels really good to let it out. You have all of this energy trapped inside and it needed to come out and need to be expressed. And then it just released some of the pent upness, There's no other reason for it. It's not all in your head. It's in your body, I guess is my point, right? Like I did a lot of things to work my mind, but I found out that a lot of it, and you guys touched on this, and the body keeps the score, but a lot of it for me was either the vocalizations or even just getting like really deep body work through a couple of different healers, like some Thai massage, but also some really just intense, you can call it, what's the new, fascia flossing is the new hot trend. So if you don't know what that is, you're basically, it's just a really deep massage where they're just breaking apart the old scar tissue, right? I have really tight, I've constricted breathing. I've been breathing in a bad pattern where my whole like abdomen and rib cage is like really tight and restricted. So I was breathing like basically out of my neck. Like if you imagine like shrugging your shoulders, you have a rib right at the top, you have ribs all the way up. I mean, I've been breathing my whole life, like in a tense, like basically through my traps, right? Like just like almost like a very tense, right? So I was holding myself in such a rigid, tense way and breathing improperly, which you breathe, I don't know how many thousand times a day, but do anything enough repetitively and you've got issues. So I had all kinds of physical like restrictions going on. I had mobility issues. I had like pain every day. My back always hurt no matter how much yoga I did. It was like, I was always uncomfortable physically. And a lot of that was because I was literally holding in my mind, I was keeping a lot of like rigid beliefs, and physically I was holding myself in a rigid way. I was like, just the connection between the body and the mind, right? People always say get into your body. And then I'm like, well, what the fuck does that mean? But if you actually do it and if you actually figure out, I'm still figuring it out. Like I struggle to meditate. I struggle to sit still. I'm like a wiggle worm, I'm very like high energy. So it's really hard for me to get quiet. But when I can, it's so deep and it's so like juicy and rewarding to really get like, listen, like have that feedback from your body. Like your body is trying to tell you something that your mind is too busy with like all the chitter chatter to like actually quiet and like listen and get the intuitive hit. So I think that has been like probably the biggest area. And gosh, there's one more story I feel like I have to tell because it was the coolest healing experience of all.
I think I know which one, and I was hoping you were going to tell this story. This is a cool one.
Well, who else? Yeah, so I was in Mexico for a yoga retreat. I had, there was it was a hosted retreat. So there was a bunch of healers that were in and out of the house. One of which was, I guess, a shaman, or she had studied with other shaman, healers across the world. And she was actually from Europe, but she was living in Mexico. So very global and just a cool girl. And she was doing this, what she called rebirthing ceremony. And I'm like, I don't know what the fuck that is, but I want to be reborn, rebirth me. So we walked back to her little house. She's got a little table set up. It's like some chill music, some incense, some candle. I get on the table and I'm like, okay. So there's deep chanting. There's lots of singing. There's a saying that, I think it's like a Hawaiian saying or something, a chant that she kept repeating. And it was like, I'm here, I see you, I love you. I'm here, I see you, I love you. It was just very simple, repeating over and over again. And then it got into more, so I'm like on the table, eyes closed, listening to this chant. I'm like, okay, you see me, you love me, great. And then you're singing, the whole time my mind is busy, just being skeptical, right? But the whole process is to chant and to hum and to I don't know what magic she works, but to basically get yourself into a state where you are evoking the feeling that you had as a baby, coming out of your mom, you the first emotional reaction you had as you entered the world, and you have fight, flight, or freeze, right? Like anybody else, a baby has the same. Babies don't have words, so they just have emotional memories, and they're very deeply imprinted memories. They're hard to express because the babies, like I said, didn't have the words. So for me, I was adopted. I was separated at birth from my mom. I don't think that she could hold me for very long. So my physical reaction once I was pulled away was just to freeze. And so on the table, she's humming, she's singing, and my body all of a sudden is completely paralyzed from the neck down. I was so heavy. I felt like I was in a lead jacket. I was couldn't move my arms, couldn't move anything, maybe my head, but nothing below. And I just felt this weird, heavy feeling. And it was just the craziest physical sensation. And then she gets up on the table and she sort of is still singing and humming and rocking me. So she's holding me from behind and just rocking me side to side. And oh my God, did I bawl.
Wow.
The best cry, the biggest, scariest, best cry. And, of course I'm like, what the fuck is happening? I'm so distraught,
That is so powerful though.
Well, the ceremony ends. We have a cozy cup of tea on her couch and we chat. She's how was that for you? What, I was what did you just do? What happened? I was paralyzed. She's so talk to me about what happened. And we just sort of, she just sort of walked me through and explained exactly you were remembering being born. You were remembering being so shocked that you were pulled away, that you just froze. You didn't know what to do. You completely froze. You were confused, right? It makes sense. I was not with my mom. I just frozen. And that's why I went heavy, paralysis, because I couldn't figure out what to do. And it's just when something is just damn, that's so true. And I had no idea. I had no recollection. You don't remember, but you do, your emotion is in there. It's in your body. And it came out through that process. I've been working with this lady that's a healer. Her name is Yulia, and she does ayahuasca retreats as well. So something that's on my bucket list is to go back to Mexico and do the whole ayahuasca ceremony, which ayahuasca is the mother herb. It's very potent, but it is supposed to heal your wounds with your mother as well as with Mother Earth and your sort of connection to Earth and to Source. So there's a lot of spirituality behind it. And there's a lot of cool stuff in there. If anybody that's listening is interested, there's a ton of cool content on how to prepare for ayahuasca. There's very specific steps. You have to take a specific diet, be pure and I don't know, all this stuff. It's kind of it's a lot. You can't just, fly over to Mexico and do it in a day. You sort of need to block out, the proper time to allow yourself to have the experience. But yeah, it was super cool. And that really got me I would say that sort of tipped me into the more woo-woo side of things, where I started to believe that there were other things out there that I could just not explain. but I just knew it. Like it was such a visceral, physical, emotional reaction that I was like, this is so true. This happened. I can vouch for it. I cannot explain it, but that's fine. Like it works. I don't even need to know.
Yeah. Okay. So what's really cool is I wouldn't have thought of this until I just heard you talk through this again, but it's like you've been building on ways of healing. So at first it was more of the just purely emotional and a little bit more mental, right? Emotional, mental healing. That's coaching and therapy and more of those you're talking through
like
experiences.
Behavioral, cognitive.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like all that stuff.
And then you brought in very physical, right? So your body needs its own healing practices. So even if your mind knows, I don't need to be anxious in this moment, or I understand where this tension is coming from and I want to let it go, but my body has gotten into these habits. So I need to bring in some very physical healing experiences. And then as you're recognizing, okay, my emotions feel a little bit more stable, right? My bodily sensations feel a little bit less reactive. Then there's this spiritual element that you bring in too. And so you've built this very holistic wellness kind of protocol, for lack of a better term, that includes the mental, the emotional, the physical, and the spiritual, because without all of those elements, you're not getting that holistic healing. There's always parts that are not being attended to. So without really, I don't know if you meant to do it that way or if it just organically unfolded that way, you've been building on all of those pieces.
Yeah, I have an addictive personality for sure. So I'm never satisfied with just a little hit, right? Like I always want to take it a step further. But that's the whole point, right? Like no one's ever done. I mean, just as soon as I unpack this one lesson, maybe I go take an ayahuasca journey and uncover something else that was repressed, right? That, again, is like another piece that needs to be healed. And I'm so excited to do it. It's sort of like, okay, all right, this has been cool. I've like in a lot of ways with all of the different healers I've worked with, I haven't even named half of the shit I've done, like acupuncture and all that. But, there's just so many things. Some are more impactful than others. And it's like anything, you just got to prioritize like what is most appealing to you? Like what is calling to you? What's the most interesting experience? Like I always, would love to just, therapy's great and all, but now that I've had a taste of and call it the spiritual, but just like that sort of deeper knowing and like that connection to things that I didn't even know, like I truly had no recollection of, you just start to have that like hint of like wonder of like what else is, innately in you that you didn't even realize. And I think that now I'm sort of starting to approach it as like, well, like I have like these like superpowers that just need to be awoken, right? Like it's all sort of lying dormant because we've all been conditioned to go about our lives and work a 9 to 5 and do the thing and, whatever. But now it's like, no, the world needs you to like find your thing, like bring that home and like awaken your soul's gifts and your healing powers. It's, do all that messy work because that's what we're all here for. We're all here to sort of like look into the shadow and look under the covers, so to speak, and sort of find like those, little nuggets. So lots more to try.
But that's what's so exciting, right? I mean, I think it'd be boring to be done. So I'm glad there's always new layers to unpack because otherwise life would get a little gray. I do have to ask because a lot of these things that you're describing, I'm sure have been impacted this year with COVID, right? The world is shut down in a lot of ways, or the ways it is open are very different from how it was a year ago. So how have you continued to take care of yourself, or how has that been impacted by this pandemic?
Yeah, so I'm sure everybody else, went through this lull of like first couple of weeks. It's like, yay, don't have to commute to work. This is great. I'm going to work in my pajamas. But then as you start to realize, you're like, wait, I can't, go get my manicure. I can't go to the gym. All of like the sort of daily stuff. Like you have to relearn how to do everything from home. You have to do everything virtually, if at all. And that's just not the same for a lot of modalities. So honestly, I mean, I got really quiet. I went inward and I started to have that anxiety of like not being able to do my normal stuff, right? And I had built up this whole team of, let's call it like my wellness team of, all kinds of services, massage and acupuncture and all of the things. And then, realizing I couldn't have access to that. And if I did, it would be like some virtual session, not the same. I had to learn how to do it for myself. And I had to like sit still and figure out like, okay. Again and again, it was challenging going back to that. Like, I don't trust myself to, have the discipline to like do the thing, right? I'll just be a lazy couch potato versus actually do a yoga practice at home. But I was like, no, I've come a long way from there. You can try it. Like, and if no pressure, right? Like taking the pressure off, taking the expectations off, but just giving yourself some compassion for like, just do a little bit, do what you can. And it's not going to be perfect. And no, it's not going to be the same as it was pre-COVID, but just do, find some ways to self-soothe, like find some ways, like I still am trying to get into meditation. I'm still trying to do yoga at home. It is really challenging for me. I am not as good about being disciplined with that stuff, but the days that I would tap in and do it, I was so proud of myself for doing the thing and showing up and like rolling out my mat rather than laying on the couch. And the little things, like I just, kept putting marbles back into the marble jar of trust and sort of, feeding that, positive momentum. Did I have weeks that I didn't do anything, positive or physical activity? Absolutely. Absolutely. Definitely gained the COVID-15, but you know what? It is what it is. And there's no shame to it. I would just say that there's been no other time in our lives where we haven't had access to like all of the things. And I live in the New York City area, so I do have access to all of the things. So not having access to anything and being stuck in my less than 500 square foot apartment, that was pretty bad. It is pretty bad. I continue to be stuck here, but you don't need all of that stuff, right? Like you don't need as much stuff as you think that you did, right? You can get by with a lot less, and you can cut out a lot of the busy, noisy stuff, the background, and just really like get quiet, meditate, spend time, journal, drink some tea, go for a walk, like the simplest things. And they're like so restorative. I was so shocked.
Yeah,
like I'm spending all of this
really
money for all of these other things. It really is. And don't get me wrong. I get bored of that too, but it was really eye-opening on how much like we have built up in our minds of like all of the things that we need to be doing or want to be doing, but it's just not necessary, right? It's a choice. So I think that just having to take like a chill pill and a forced pause wasn't necessarily the worst thing. And I'll try to be mindful of that as we, eventually when we reopen, keep that sort of in the back of my mind. It's like, hey, you had to live without all of these things before and you were fine. Well, you were okay. You were okay. You made it. So, having to kind of reset expectations there for sure. Yeah.
And remind yourself of your own resilience, that you pulled yourself through a really hard time. And if you don't have access to some of these things or if you don't have access to all of them at once, you're still going to be okay because you've had to be there before. So there's a lot of self-trust that gets built in a time like this, I think.
Mm-hmm. A lot of being okay with, having your roots show and your desperate need of a manager, but
so true. Okay. I have one more question because I think this is going to be interesting for your own sake to do this, but if you could talk to the you of 6 years ago, 5 years ago, who was really struggling with, I don't really like myself, I don't believe in myself, I don't feel good enough. And also if you could talk to people who are maybe currently there, feeling that on a very visceral level in a way that you did years ago on a daily basis. And I'm not asking you to solve all their problems, but I am asking you to give them an idea of like, where can they start to start taking this kind of healing journey that you have been on the last few years? Like, what would you recommend for someone who's feeling a little lost?
Yeah, I was thinking about how I used to behave and what that probably looked like to other people, right? I was super dismissive of compliments. Like if you were to be like, wow, you've done a really nice job, you would just immediately like write it off, right? Sort of this self-deprecating humor, right? Tons of sarcasm, just dripping with sarcasm. And I thought I was, being clever, but really it was a wall that I put up because I was really uncomfortable with looking at myself. Have more compassion, find that ability to have compassion and hold yourself in high regard and say, you are doing enough. You are enough. You are doing the best you can. And to also have the practice of, maybe like a brag sheet. I think that you put me onto this and I actually really like it. I've used it professionally and just like in general, but like all of the little moments of the tiny little things. You get a compliment at work. You get, like your coat, you get, I don't know, like any little thing that's positive, right? It's really easy for us to fixate on the negative, and I am an expert at it, and I'm sure a lot of other people are too. So if you actually document, like actually write down on paper the nice things that people say to you and the nice thoughts that you have about yourself when you have them, you will compile a pretty nice list. And it's really good to be able to refer back to that and have, I think you'll just be able to like see things a little bit more objectively and start to release some of that self-judgment. And it's really hard because that self-judgment really wants to hold on. It's like trying to keep you safe. You think that you're not safe. You think that you have to work harder to be better, to like earn the thing that you want, but you've already earned it. Like you are enough just as you are. And if you're anything like me, you won't believe it coming from me. You have to believe it for yourself. You have to go out and experience it, feel all the pain of not having the thing. But, just continue, like, treat yourself, hold yourself in high regard, invest in yourself, keep doing the work bit by bit.
Oh, that's so good. Just like that compassion piece, and just keep believing that there's more to uncover, and there's just to continue to feel hopeful, I think. And honestly, like just keep feeling like it's not always going to feel like this. There is. And I think your story right now that you just shared is very inspiring and is hopeful for people who are feeling a little bit lost right now, that it doesn't have to be like this forever. And it might be a journey to get to the point of liking yourself, believing in yourself, finding a place for yourself, and figuring out really what you need and giving it to yourself out of that place of love. But it's a really worthwhile journey. You're going to have some really cool experiences along the way. And life just feels a lot calmer and better on the other side. So thank you for being so candid in your story and just sharing. I mean, like, this is what I love about you, is you are just unapologetically yourself, and you are just so relatable. So thank you so much for sharing this. Because I know you are like the great connector, if people are open to connecting with Bekah, we might have some ways of finding her online. Also, feel free to connect with me. Just email us at contact@clarityonfire.com, and I'm happy to put you in touch, because I just feel like some people might like to talk to someone who gets it. And you kindly offered that.
I'm dying to set up
on this recording.
I'm dying to set up the Clarity on Fire. I don't want to call it like a support group, but like a little meetup of like-minded people, because I'm sure that you've got other listeners. Although I guess location is so irrelevant these days. So if you're on East Coast time, hit me up.
There you go. The whole time zone is fine. That's great. Well, thank you so much, Bekah. This has been amazing. And you and I will be talking soon, but I can't wait for everyone else to hear your story.
Thanks for thinking of me, Kristen. Love to be on.
Bye-bye.
Okay, I want to go watch Henry Cavill now.
That is our Friday night activity.
Yeah, just a reminder that it's Friday night.
For us. So if any of this resonated, please leave a comment. I'm telling you, Bekah would love to connect with you guys if you leave a comment. She's one of the bigger extroverts that I know.
She's a real E on that Myers-Briggs.
Yeah, for sure. So share how this resonated. We'll be back, next Friday, I believe?
Next Friday with a new side chat, which I haven't decided what it's going to be about yet. So I don't know.
You'll find out next week.
Okay.
Bye.